your prayers, we say
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
See, I know you're praying about something.
Amen.
I know there's something that you're desiring to be. I know there's something that you're desiring to do or to shift or to change. So we just say to it, amen. Ashe. It definitely will be so. I am confident in the word of truth, and so it is. See, you can be whatever you want. You can do and have whatever you want. That's why we say it definitely will be so. And so it is. We're going to continue to stand in that knowing. Amen. To that business. To that healing. To that change you're looking for. Healing in your mind, in your body, yeah. Healing over your life. We say amen. Ashe. It definitely will be so. That breakthrough you're expecting, we expect it with you. That shift, that change, that transformation, we say it definitely will be so. We know it will be so. And so it is. We're going to take it up. We sing it. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, yeah.
Amen.
We sing amen.
Amen.
Oh.
Amen.
To whatever you're praying for.
Amen.
We're knowing it with you.
Amen.
And we're seeing it with you.
Amen.
Hey, hey. Knowing again, amen.
Amen.
You can sing to the person next to you.
Amen.
You don't have to know what they're praying about.
Amen.
You just know that the God in them and the God in you is always working it out.
Amen.
Nothing but good can come from them.
Amen.
Nothing but good can come from them. Amen. Amen. Not it might be, not hoping, not wishing, but we are knowing, we are expecting, we are believing, we are confident in the word of faith that has been spoken, and we know that it will outpicture, it will manifest, it will demonstrate in our lives. So we live in the completion of it. We affirm that it's done. We affirm that it's done. It is done, 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 done. This knowingness. This is how we pray. By affirming the truth. We're not asking, we're not begging, we're not beseeching, we're not bargaining. But we know that the God in us always supplies every one of our needs. So we speak from that knowingness. We speak from that recognition that it is already done. We speak from that recognition that all good things are already provided. We speak from that recognition that if we seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, all good things will be added unto us. So we sing, so it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You may think it's a mountain, and to that mountain I say, mountain, get out of my way. You may not have seen it done in your life or in your family's life, but I still say, somebody may have told you that you, because the way you look, or how, because you're male or female, that you can't do it, but to that we sing, and so it is, yeah. To your prayers we say,
Amen. Amen.
amen.
Amen. Amen.
See, I know you're praying about something.
Amen.
I know there's something that you're desiring to be. I know there's something that you're desiring to do or to shift or to change. So we just say to it, amen. Ashe,
Ashe.
it definitely will be so.
Ashe.
I am confident in the word of truth, and so it is.
And so it is.
See, you can be whatever you want. You can do and have whatever you want. That's why we say it definitely will be so. And so it is.
And so it is.
We're going to continue to stand in that knowing. Amen.
Amen.
To that business.
Amen.
To that healing.
Amen.
To that change you're looking for.
Amen.
Healing in your mind.
Amen.
In your body. Yeah.
Amen.
Healing over your life.
Amen.
We say amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
It definitely will be so.
Ashe.
That breakthrough you're expecting,
Ashe.
we expect it with you.
And so it is.
That shift, that change, that transformation, we say it definitely will be so.
Ashe.
We know it will be so.
Ashe.
And so it is.
And so it is.
We're going to take it up. We sing amen.
Amen.
Hey, yeah.
Amen.
We sing amen.
Amen.
Oh,
Amen.
to whatever you're praying for,
Amen.
we're knowing it with you.
Amen.
And we're seeing it with you.
Amen.
Hey, hey. Ashe.
Ashe.
Oh, oh, so it is.
And so it is.
I'm standing with you. I know it will be.
Ashe.
I'm confident it will be. So it is.
And so it is.
Can we stand in that knowing again? Amen.
Amen.
You can sing to the person next to you.
Amen.
You don't have to know what they're praying about.
Amen.
You just know that the God in them and the God in you is always working it out. Nothing but good can come from them. Nothing but good can come from them. Amen. Ashe. Oh, oh. And so it is. I'm standing with you. I'm believing with you. And I'm knowing with you. And so it is. And so it is. Not it might be, not hoping, not wishing, but we are knowing. We are expecting. We are believing. We are confident in the word of faith that has been spoken. And we know that it will outpicture, it will manifest, it will demonstrate in our lives. So we live in the completion of it. We affirm that it's done. We affirm that it's done. It is done, 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 done. It is done, 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 done. Yeah, yeah, it's done. So it is. So it is, yeah. We stand in this knowingness. This is how we pray. By affirming the truth. We're not asking, we're not begging, we're not beseeching, we're not bargaining. But we know that the God in us always supplies every one of our needs. So we speak from that knowingness. We speak from that recognition that it is already done. We speak from that recognition that all good things are already provided. We speak from that recognition that if we seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, all good things will be added unto us. So we sing, so it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You may think it's a mountain, and to that mountain I say, mountain, get out of my way. You may not have seen it done in your life or in your family's life, but I still say, somebody may have told you that you, because the way you look, or how, because you're male or female, that you can't do it, but to that we sing, and so it is, yeah. I don't care how old you are, and I don't care how young you are. I know it's done, I know it's done, yeah. So we close our eyes to the voices outside of us. We close our eyes and our minds to any doubt, to any worry, and we simply live in the knowingness that it is done. So it is. 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 Oh, so it is. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, hey. So it is. So it is. So it is. And so it is. So it is. So it is. So it is. Hey, and so it is. So it is. So it is. It is so it is. So it is. So it is. So it is. It is so it is. So it is. Yeah. So it is. Yeah, so it is. Yes, 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 yes. To your prayers we say, Amen. Amen. See, I know you're praying about something. I know there's something that you're desiring to be. I know there's something that you're desiring to do or to shift or to change. So we just say to it, Amen. Ashe. It definitely will be so. I am confident in the word of truth, and so it is. See, you can be whatever you want. You can do and have whatever you want. That's why we say it definitely will be so. And so it is. We're going to continue to stand on. Amen. To that business. To that healing. To that change you're looking for. Healing in your mind.
Hey, 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 happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, everyone.
Yes, yes. It is so good to be here with each and every one of you again on another Sunday as we know the truth of who and whose we are, and we celebrate the magnificence of God in us, through us, and as us. We don't want to waste any time. We want to get right into it. So let us start, as we always do, with prayer. And this morning, our prayer champion, Lavonda Elam, will lead us in prayer.
Hello and beautiful Sunday, Celebration Spiritual Center. Let us ground in breath as we gather in spirit and lean into the truth of our being through the power of imminent prayer. Loving the breath that is now, as I move from this breath, I'm aware there is one life, one presence, one creator that is perfect, timeless, and unchanging love. I'm aware that this presence is all-knowing and all-powerful, that this presence is so grand in its giving, so abundant in its goodness, that it is indeed the very essence of abundance and good. And I'm so glad to know that this good reveals itself in and as my life, and it reveals itself in and as your lives, reflecting the God I am everywhere that we turn and in everything that surrounds us, reminding us that its magnetic energy is always where we are, that it goes where we goes. There's no spot that it is not, and that it is the very foundation and center of our being. From this knowing and moving from this closeness, gracious God, I affirm today that as we shed all things that don't serve us, that we each make way for our vessels to open more widely, to receive more, to open wider, to give more, and even wider, to be more and to experience more of who and what God is through these teachings as we unify in divine wisdom, understanding, and know-how that is present here today. Spirit of truth, as we live in the continuum of the game of life study, I affirm and pray today that inspiration is indeed the order of the day as it shines through. I pray that our minds are illuminated and that as we take on and listen to the word, that we are graced by sweet moments of ahas and ahs in our discovery. I pray today knowing that the learning is activated, that these principles, dear God, are incorporated in our lives on a day-to-day, and that we speak on them in such a way, Spirit, that inquiring minds want to know, so that each of them too are touched and blessed by these knowings. Yes, yes, divine Spirit, as Pastor Greg always says. It is from this place today that I speak the yes. It is from this place that I hold truth. It is from this place of knowing that I pray. Thank you, beloved Spirit, for the gift of the divine daily bread. Thank you, beloved Spirit, for the 1-2 power punch duo that drops this word every Sunday. And thank you for the spirited energies that are willing, that seek truth, and are here, ready to receive it. Upon the chalice of gratitude and in great expectation, I release this prayer back to the law that is always operating and responding to our doings as it already deems this prayer done. On the grace of yet another breath, I say amen, ashe, and so it is.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, amen.
Amen, ashe.
So it is.
And so it is. We are ready and ready and ready and ready. Thank you, Lavonda, for that powerful prayer. And hello again to each and every one of you. Welcome. Happy Sunday. It is so good to be here with each and every one of you. It is so good to just gather together in consciousness, to know these truths, to speak these truths, to learn and realign with the truth of who and whose we are and this law that is always in operation. If you are a first-time guest, hello, welcome.
Hey.
We especially want to say welcome to you. Thank you for choosing to join us here on this Sunday, knowing that you could stream anywhere and you have almost an infinite number of services to stream. We're so glad that you chose to hang out with us this Sunday, and we pray that this offering today is exactly what you needed and exactly what you were asking for. Now, if you are a first-time guest, you see the information here on your screen. All you have to do to stay in touch with us is to text this number, 347-472-1078. Text the word welcome to that number. Please, just the word welcome. No additional emojis or hellos or I love it here's, right? Which, of course, we love to know that. It's just that the system won't respond to that. So you have to just text the word welcome. You'll receive a response with a link. Tap that link and enter your information. After you enter your information, you'll receive a confirmation. That confirmation then lets you know that you're on our mailing list, okay? So it's very important that you follow all of those steps so that you're on our mailing list. Many of you know that today is God Talk Sunday, and we're going to talk about what the God Talk is, and so if you want to be a part of what we're doing today at 1 o'clock, you're going to need to be on our mailing list. And so by texting the word welcome to this number, completing all of the steps, you'll receive an email with that information. So we do have some announcements and some things to talk about, like the God Talk. So let's get into that, and then we can get into the meditation and into class time. First, we want to remind you that, as always, CSC is closed on Memorial Day weekend. So the last Sunday of this month, we will not be having service. We will not be having class and streaming live. So please govern yourselves accordingly and know that we'll all be together again live on the following week. This is also Mental Health Awareness Month. This is something that's very important to us as pastors and our community. It's something that we have been intentional about since the creation of CSC.
Yes.
And so we are so happy and grateful to continue to partner with the city. This is the Thrive Weekend of Faith, and we are doing things here and there each and every Sunday. We talk about mental health first aid last week, and so we are doing and sharing things to help to end the stigma, which is something that's very important to the two of us. And so we want to share something with you that you may know already, but I think it's important to continue to reiterate and share. And you, of course, can also share this with others. Now, you may see in the post on YouTube or Facebook, there is a link to more resources that you can access. But one of the things that's very important is to talk about what mental illness is not.
This
because
is so important.
Yes, because there is so much stigma around mental illness, we need to be clear about these four very simple yet impactful things. First, mental health is not imaginary, right?
Mental illness is not imaginary, right?
It's not imaginary. Mental illnesses are very real and very common, right? Also, mental illness is not something to, quote, get over. Right? Mental illnesses cannot be willed away. And I'll say this because we are a church. Mental illnesses cannot be prayed away.
Say it.
Right? And unfortunately, this is what many spiritual communities and churches throughout time have done. Something that you just get over. Cannot be willed away or prayed away.
Right. And part of that is because we don't understand mental illness, and anything that we don't understand, we usually fear.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to understand what it's not so that you can seek out help when you need it.
Absolutely. Mental illness is also not a character flaw,
Oh, yeah.
right? Mental illnesses are medical conditions that do not define us, and they can affect anyone, right? So often, this is something that many people think of. Oh, they were just a weak person, or oh, they just can't handle life.
Right. Or the
Right,
pressure or
right.
whatever.
It's
Right.
not a character flaw. It's a medical condition, and it can affect anyone. And finally, mental illness is not untreatable. This is important. Mental health conditions are treatable. Mental illness is a medical condition, just like heart disease or diabetes, which means that just as we know that heart disease is treatable, just as we know that diabetes is treatable, so mental illness is treatable, right? Now, one of the other things that I think is important is to also recognize that all of us can have mental health challenges at a given point in time in our life. It may not reach the point of a diagnosed mental illness, right? But of course, as we are in a pandemic, as folks are having different economic challenges, different employment challenges, that affects your mental health. And so you may have a mental health challenge right now that might not be considered a diagnosed illness. And so we want to share with you again these resources. Again, there's a link in the post that you can get to these resources. Here as New Yorkers, we have NYC Well. It's a great resource. You can text, you can chat, you can call 24/7, 365. Again, if you're having a challenge, things are difficult. Many of us, I know me personally, right, we're moving through different stages of grief, right? For some, the 1 year anniversary of a loved one has come or is about to come, right? And for others of us, friends or those that are close to us are still transitioning due to COVID. And so we have these resources that are here. We encourage you to use them and share it. Also, the state has a specific COVID-19 emotional support helpline, and this is to get that support, recognizing that at any moment we might not be okay, we might be going through a challenge, but what's most important is that we don't try to do it alone. Yeah. Now, as I mentioned earlier, today is God Talk Sunday. It's the third Sunday. What is the God Talk? God Talk is an opportunity for you to ask questions of us, to really get kind of like group coaching, if you will. No question is off limits. We know that many times, particularly those that are new to New Thought, you have lots of questions because you love the teachings, you love what you're hearing, and then there's other what-abouts, right? Or additionally, you may be someone that's a seasoned metaphysician. You've been practicing these principles, but you have need some clarity. You have a fear, doubt, or worry that's showing up, and you want to know how to best approach and apply the laws and the things that you've learned. And so we're happy to spend this hour with you. Again, the information is sent to our mailing list because we're using Zoom because it's virtual. So I just want to share that again, that information. You see it here on your screen. Text the word welcome to 347-472-1078. Once you complete the process, then you will be emailed the Zoom link and password. We definitely look forward to sharing and being with you all. It's always a joy for us because it's an opportunity to see many of your faces live and on Zoom when we're, of course, not able to see your faces as we're streaming now.
Yeah. God Talk is always a beautiful opportunity to come together. We talk a lot about practical spirituality, and so it's always important to take these teachings that we're learning and apply them to our lives. If we cannot live these teachings, then again, it's just some information, and we want to make sure that you're applying them to your life. So we'll be here with you today at 1 o'clock.
Yes. We are a church that believes in prayer. And so each and every week, Wednesday morning, we gather together at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to pray. During the Momentum Prayer Call, I share a reading on that day, and then one of our prayer champions, or PY or myself, lead the prayer. It's short and sweet, but powerful and impactful. And so we would love for you to join us this coming Wednesday morning. The information is here on your screen. If you're not able to join us live, it's okay because the prayer is recorded. And so you can use this information that you see here on the screen, the playback number, into the access code, and just wait. You don't have to enter any additional information after that. And the most recent prayer will play. I say it many times, but it's always a joy for me to see that so many of you access that prayer throughout the week, Sunday through Saturday, right? And that's beautiful because that's what it's there for.
Multiple times if you need it.
Yes. Now, if you have a specific prayer request, you can send that prayer request to prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. We are praying constantly. We are praying daily. And so we are happy to hold and know the truth with you, to love your loved ones with you, to love you and see you moving through whatever conditions or experiences you may be having right now, to move through them easily and effortlessly, elegantly and victoriously. So feel free to send that prayer request to this email address and know that we are praying with and for you. I also want to let everybody know, again, that we are in the midst of a class. We're not doing a traditional service right now. We are teaching and going line by line, precept by precept, with the book We Got Game. I keep doing that. The class is called We Got Game. The book is, as you can see, The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. It's been a joy to teach this, and so if you do not already have the book, if you're just here for the first time and you're just hearing about this, there's a link here in the post. You can click on that link and purchase this version with the yellow cover of The Game of Life and How to Play It, or any other copy or version that you see or that you find. This book is in public domain, and so there are lots of published versions of it. But we're excited. We're again going chapter by chapter. I cannot stress enough, please go chapter by chapter with us. Do not skip ahead. Do not read the whole book all the way through, right? If you feel the need for more, go back to the beginning of that chapter that you just read.
Absolutely. As many times as I've read this book, I was telling PG this morning, I was like, oh yeah. It's just such a good book. It's such a foundational text, and it's always good to revisit it if you've read it before. Yeah. Read it again. Read the chapter again. And go deeper.
Absolutely. Well, it is time for meditation, and so I will leave you in the very capable, loving hands of PY.
Meditation. One of my favorite things. One of my favorite tools, one of my favorite ways to remember the truth, one of my favorite ways to go beyond intellect and go into a lived experience of God. connected experience of God. And this month, we are affirming a simple truth: all is well. And if you are in the midst of a challenge, it may not appear that all is well. Understandable. We are having a human experience, and sometimes that human experience can be challenging. But we can hold the challenge and the truth at the same time. And in fact, as we're talking today, we can let go of the challenge and just be in the vibration of the truth. And the simple idea, all is well, is about the highest elevation and understanding of any experience. It's using God's view of an experience, standing back and seeing all the pieces in place, looking at it as a cosmos and not a chaos. It is the way that we can bring our breath and ourselves and our thoughts present. All is well. All is well because I'm connected to the stream of well-being. All is well because I'm connected to the one mind with all the answers. All is well because I am worthy of all being well. Just knowing that, just closing our eyes sometimes and breathing from that place. 4 simple words. All is well. All is well. I know that all is well. So let's do that. Let's practice now. Let's go beyond thinking things and experiencing God. So, look around the room. Notice where you are. And whether you are seated upright in a chair, on your sofa, in your bed, make sure that you are seated upright and that your shoulders are aligned over your hips. Not rigid, but there's a nice gentle stacking of vertebra on top of vertebra so that the column, the line of energy is nice and smooth and straight, and breath can move freely, unobstructed. As we sit in this position, we are open and available to God, open and available to all is well. And so, let's close our eyes and take this feeling of safety, of knowing, back to its source. And with our eyes closed, we just notice the breath. That is the energy that we ride, this feeling that we allow to connect us, that we surrender every care to. Just notice the breath for a few rounds. And whether it appears to be deep or shallow, there is no judgment. What we can affirm is all is well and the breath is flowing. Last round of just noticing and being in gratitude for the breath. And now, let's take conscious control together of the breath, not in a hurried fashion, but in a connected way. Sending our thoughts and our breath into the low belly. Inhale, expanding the belly. Inhale. Hold it there. Count of 4. Open their mouth, relax the jaw, release, count of 4. Again, inhale into the low belly, expanding the low belly, making room for more. All is well. Hold it there. And release, count of 4. Moving that breath in through the low belly, up through the rib cage, expanding, realizing there's more room for breath as we expand the front and the sides and the back of the body. Hold it there. And release. This connected breath feels so good to make room for it. Inhaling again in and up through the rib cage. Expanding the sides, the front, the back of this body. Connecting to it more fully, holding it there. And releasing. In through the low belly, up through the rib cage, up through the heart. It feels good to elongate the breath, to slow it down, to feel it across the heart, the center of the chest, opening, allowing healing. And release. Again, in through the low belly, up through the rib cage, up through the heart, center of the chest, that heart chakra, open and available. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release it. Let's practice this long, flowing, easy breath in through the low belly, all the way up through the heart. And when you reach that heart, close the lips. And now exhale through the nose. Let's take a few rounds to practice this way of breathing, this soothing, easy way of relaxing our body, in and out through the nose. Each round taking us deeper, and each round reminding us of all is well. Each time I breathe and affirm this truth, I cast every burden on this mind. I open myself to receive, and I feel the connection that is God, for I know all is well. Last round. And now let's send that easy breath into the feet. Notice if there's any tension in the heels or the toes or the bottom of the feet. Maybe we raise the heels. Maybe we raise the toes. Stop the movement. Release the feet to the earth, to the ground beneath. Release them into all is well. It's as if they swim in a cool pool of all is well. We float away on it. We relax in it. That energy that we've relaxed into now flows unobstructed through the soles of our feet. Across our ankles, we relax the ankles. Imagining there nothing to grip and hold on to. We become so flexible and easy flowing and easy going. Sending the energy up our shins and calves. Relax the shins and the calves. Becoming one with this flow, this energy, releasing anything that we've been holding. Energy flows across our knees. We bend, we align, we allow. All is well to be our vibration now. And now the energy flows across the thighs, the hamstrings, and the glutes. If we've been carrying anything there, release the thighs, the hamstrings, and the glutes. Sending that energy into the hip sockets, opening the hips, allowing the joy, allowing the energy, allowing all is well. Relax the hips. Align with that energy at the base of the spine, imagining in our subtle body every chakra aligned, opening, and available. As we send the energy up, 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 up and out the crown of our head. Our crown is open. The energy is above us, all around us. We float in it. We allow ourselves to be one with this energy of all is well. And since we no longer fight it or resist it or think we are unworthy of it, we permit it to flow back down through the crown, opening our third eye, giving easy voice to our truth that all is well, flowing across our shoulders and down our arms. If the palms are turned down, feel the energy flowing through the fingertips, and if the palms are turned up, feel that gentle breeze across the palm and out the fingertips. We have become an open channel now for love to flow through, for God to animate, and for truth to inhabit as we affirm all is well. From this connected place, we scan our body one last time. And without judgment and in love and compassion, notice anywhere that we're still holding, even if it's a slight grip, a slight tension. Send the breath there now. And notice as you send the breath and focus there and give permission, that place within you relaxes into all is well. As we prepare for our silent time, I will monitor. You just take that inward journey. And if at any point during our silence the mind becomes active, it's okay. It's operating the way it was designed. We bring the mind back to this truth. All is well. We give it permission to be our reality. We float away on it. The next time you hear my voice, it will be to begin our return. But for now, enjoy the vibration and connection to God, to all is well, for it is true now. With our eyes still closed, we float in this sea of all is well. And just as if we were floating in the ocean, we are never separate from it. We are one with it. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. We enjoy this feeling of connection that we've given ourselves. And with our eyes still closed, we solidify it within our very being of how good it feels to know all is well. Let us begin now to awaken the body, to start to bring it back to this room, this human experience, this encounter, this moment. But we don't lose our connection. We bring it with us. We allow that connection to activate our day, animate our bodies, fill our minds, and open our hearts. So go ahead. If the palms are turned up, turn them down, and plant the palms on the tops of the thighs, pausing there just to notice the connection, the relaxation, the open, available position that we find ourselves in. Go ahead and maybe begin to wake the lower half of the body, rubbing the knees, the tops of the thighs, the shins, the calves, raising the heels, whatever would help signal the lower half of your body to wake. Stop the movement. Plant the palms on the tops of the thighs. Inhale, draw the shoulders up by the ears. Inhale. Hold it there, drawing the shoulder blades back. Nice easy release down, releasing the breath at the same time. Beautiful. Inhale. Shoulders up and back. And releasing the breath as the shoulders lower. Last time. Inhale, shoulders up by the ears. And back. Releasing the breath as you ease the shoulders down. Beautiful. Bring the palms together at heart center. As we align with the breath and as we slow everything down even more, we bow our chin to our fingertips in gratitude, thankful for what we have given ourselves, for what we have shared together, for those who have come before. Thankful to know that we could not be more worthy or more loved by the universe. And more importantly, grateful to know that all is well. Slowly flutter the eyes open, taking in a point in front of you. Nice soft drishti, nice soft gaze. No strain on the eyes, no strain anywhere in our experience. Allow a soft focus as we inhale and raise the chin, raise the gaze. Release the breath. Namaste.
Yes, namaste. That was powerful. Thank you, PY.
Ah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're going to get into the next chapter, which is casting the burden. Before we get into the chapter, I just want to remind you that as questions come up, as concerns, big or small, please send an email to truthsunday@celebrationsc.org. We'll incorporate your question into the class and answer it, because we want to make sure that you're fully receiving everything you need to really make use of what Florence Scovelshire is teaching. PY and I were talking earlier. This is one of our favorite chapters. As I revisited the chapter, it just reminded me of so many times, so many moments where I used this principle, and I continue to use this principle. So let's get into it so we can understand it.
Yeah, it's a great one.
And more importantly, so we can apply it.
There you go. The application is so important, and integration.
Yes. All right, let's see here. Just things I can see what's going on. All right, here we go.
Everyone has their books. Ready
Casting
to
the
hit
burden. All right.
Yeah.
Impressing the subconscious. When humanity, or I'll just say when woman knows her own powers
Yes.
and the workings of her mind, her great desire is to find an easy and quick way to impress the subconscious with good, for simply an intellectual knowledge of the truth will not bring results. We could spend the rest of the time on that one highlighted last thing that she just said, right? An intellectual knowledge of the truth will not bring results. And this is something that PY says almost every Sunday in the meditation, right? This idea of the knowledge, right? But not experiencing God, experiencing truth. And so, unfortunately, what many of us have done, we are spiritual hoarders. We have every book that exists, from Marianne Williamson to Michael Beckwith to Eckhart Tolle to Neil Donald Walsh to Byron Katie, and on and on. We have an intellectual knowledge of the truth, but that won't bring you nothing.
Right. If I had tea right now, I'd be sipping. Okay.
Okay? An intellectual knowledge of the truth will not bring results. So we have to understand it and then find the ways that we can practice impressing the subconscious mind, right? Okay. In my own case, I found the easiest way is casting the burden. A metaphysician once explained it in this manner. He said, "The only thing which gives anything weight in nature is the law of gravitation. And if a boulder could be taken high above the planet, there would be no weight in that boulder. And that is what Jesus Christ meant when he said, 'My yoke is easy and my burden is light.'" Let's take a breath again. Consider this, right? It's interesting when we think about laws, right? Sort of, I'm going to use the word higher and lower, right? Just for the sake of our understanding, right? Because it's fixed on earth, right? That if you take a boulder high up on earth, it's still going to hold its same weight, right? It's still going to have the same impact that it would have if it was on the ground. But if you take it into space, all of a sudden it becomes weightless, right? That's another reality that we have access to, right? And it would completely change the experience of the boulder. Well, as above, so below. As below, so above. What does that principle of correspondence mean? It means that if that is true and I can access that in the physical realm, we know that to be true, then that means in consciousness, I must also be able to practice the same thing spiritually. So what she's saying here is that the burdens that we possess, we can take them to space, if you will, and they become weightless, where they are heavy and weigh us down here on earth, right? And so this is the deeper understanding of what Jesus is saying when he's saying, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." He had overcome the world vibration and function in the fourth dimensional realm, where there is only perfection, completion, life, and joy. He said, "Come to me, all that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." We are told in the 55th Psalm to cast thy burden upon the Lord. And I just, for those of you so you can see it, that entire verse, or that entire piece of that verse, right? This is the New Revised Standard Version. Cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. So it's not just, oh, cast the burden on the Lord because, that's what's good to do, right? By releasing the burden, you now find you are now sustained. By releasing the burden, something happens where you will not be moved. Moved in the sense of,
Go ahead.
Yeah, moved in the sense of, not being moved out of your rightful place, not being disturbed in any way. It's all of these things are here. So that's why we cast the burden.
This is so important because if you look at this passage of Scripture, He will sustain you. What are we usually focused on and sustained by? The burden. But when we cast it off, we can change our focus. We can permit and allow ourselves to be connected and cast that off.
Yep.
Yep.
Many passages in the Bible state that the battle is God's, not man's, and that man or humanity is always to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. I keep bringing up the song. You can go to YouTube and listen to it. Again, all of these ideas, Florence Scovel Shinn, so many of these ideas are contained in the song, I Bless It, right? For the battle belongs to God. So what do? We bless it, right? We stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. This indicates that the superconscious mind, or Christ within, is the department which fights our battles and relieves us of our burdens. We see, therefore, that humanity violates law if we carry a burden. And a burden is an adverse thought or condition. And this thought or condition has its root in the subconscious. This is some beautiful, powerful stuff right here.
Just stop there. Yeah.
It is a violation of law, in truth, to carry the burden.
Yes. It's not. That's why it says it's not yours, it's the Lord's.
Right. We've heard these spiritual truths
and we
and
sing
axioms.
these songs and we say these things and we don't bit more believe it or know why we do it.
Let go, let God.
Yeah, all of that.
Shout out to P.J. Morton and Dwayne Woods, right? That soon as I stop worrying about how the story ends, when I let go and I let God have his way, that's when things started happening. Why? Because it's literally a violation of spiritual law to hold on to the burden, right? Because there's something within us. Again, looking at and understanding how Florence Scovel Shinn teaches it, right? The superconscious mind, we can look at this slide again. We have the subconscious, which is the thing that receives impressions. It is, it's not creating things in the sense of originating. It's not the causer. We have the conscious mind, which is our external physical mind. And then we have the superconscious mind, which is the Christ mind, or God within us, right? That is the thing, which he says very clearly, that is the thing which fights our battles and relieves us of our burdens. And guess what? The superconscious, the Christ mind, the God mind is within you. This is why I love where Eric Butterworth writes in Spiritual Economics that God neither comes nor goes. Because this is also important. See, some of us have learned that we got to let go and let God, but we were taught that we had to do all of these things to convince God to take our burden. Right? Or to listen to us or show up, maybe not when we want them, but right on time. Right? But if we understand, as we know and understand the nature of God, and our God concept reminds us that God is always right here, right now. It neither comes nor goes. That's important. That means that whenever there is something, a battle, right? Whenever there's a burden, that Christ mind, that superconscious mind is right here and available, waiting, ready, willing, capable for you to just leave it there.
Right. And also the beauty of it is the Christ consciousness knows there really is no battle because there is only one mind operating and it is operating on your behalf. So when you surrender it, it's you're surrendering it to the nothingness from which it came, which opens up the possibility of infinite possibilities coming in to answer.
Yes.
That's why we talk about is your burden bigger than God? We keep holding it thinking that it is bigger than God. We keep holding it thinking that there's something in opposition to God that would prevent you from receiving your good.
Yep.
But as soon as you surrender it back into the nothingness from which it came, It opens up the possibility. It opens up the reservoir so that God can flow in, so that truth can flow in, so that all is well can flow in.
Yes, yes.
So that your consciousness can shift to align with the super consciousness.
Yeah.
And once you shift your consciousness, everything begins to open up and seem clear.
We go on. It seems almost impossible to make any headway directing the subconscious from the conscious or reasoning mind, as the reasoning mind or the intellect is limited in its conceptions.
Absolutely.
And filled with doubts and fears. I was talking about this in a coaching session yesterday. One of the things, one of my mentors, James Mtume, says that's very profound. He says, you can only sample the past, right? Now, sampled music is wonderful, right? I'm wearing, shout out to Biggie, right? We love samples. We love what hip hop has done with samples. But if you just stop and think about it, you can only sample the past, what has already existed. This is what's also true about the conscious mind or the reasoning mind. It can only see or think or believe or even imagine, I'm using that word loosely because it technically isn't imagining, based on what it's already seen is possible, what it's already seen is here, because that's why it's the reasoning mind. It's like, oh, well, I've seen that, you know, certain people can do these things, so maybe I can do it too, right? Oh, I see where this has worked out for someone, so maybe it can work out for me.
Or this is how I've solved it in the past, so
Exactly.
I'm going to do that again.
Exactly. It can only use the past, right? Which can be beneficial, right? This is, we're not poo-pooing on it in that sense. But what we must understand is that the superconscious mind is the realm of all ideas, those which have already manifested and with those that are waiting to be manifested as soon as humanity gets their act together. Right? I love to think about, and so many teachers have talked about this, right? All of the technology we enjoy today, new materials weren't created for us to enjoy them, right? The possibility, the electricity, all of the wonderful things that we have always existed. 20,000 years ago, all of the things necessary for that existed if and when humanity tapped into the superconscious mind to bring it into being, right? Believe that which did not exist yet could exist, right? And so this is what's important when we understand that the reasoning mind or the intellect is limited in its conceptions, and it's also filled with doubts and fears.
Right. And it's interesting. We're not saying, again, that there's anything wrong with the conscious mind. We're not saying that. Because, for example, if things have worked out in the past and you have developed in your conscious mind and planted in your subconscious that all will be well no matter what I'm seeing, then it's useful. But if you're going to the worry, the doubt, the fear from past experiences, then it's not.
Right. Right. So she goes on, how scientific it then is to cast the burden upon the superconscious mind or Christ within, where it is made light or dissolved into its native nothingness. Now, this is important because what do we tend to do? When we're trying to fix it or control it or solve it from our conscious mind, right? That is not scientific, right? That is not a use of law, right? That's not making use of the law. And so what we're saying here is, what she's saying here then is that we, instead of trying to solve it ourselves, instead of trying to reason or use our intellect or our capabilities, right? We actually allow the superconscious mind to solve it, to resolve it, to figure it out.
To dissolve it.
Right, right. And I'm remembering a song I'd still love to this day, that Jesus can work it out, right? He said, while you're trying to figure it out, God has already worked it out, right? The superconscious mind already knows the answer. It has already worked it out, but you have to give it over. That's in the song. I gave it over to the Lord and he worked it out, right? Again, these principles have always been right here all the time.
Right.
And there's so much wisdom in that. While you're trying to figure it out, God has already worked it out.
So why don't you just let it go? And again, we're not talking about becoming immobilized. We're saying that we clear our mind, we free our mind so that the right answers, the divine answers, the God ideas can fill it. And then we move, then we act.
Yeah. And it's important, I hope you can hear this, right? That when we say let it go, and in this context, right, cast the burden. So it's not letting it go in the sense of just, oh, I just let it go. Just something. No, you have to give it to something, right? There's another song, I give this to you, right, which we sing and love, right? you have to cast the burden on the superconscious mind, or the Christ within, right? The God within. That's very important, right? That it's not just, oh, I just throw my hands
Right.
up. I don't know.
It's not apathy we're talking about.
No, this is power.
Right.
This is a power position.
Right. Because the mind is activated and you are giving permission for God to enter, for God to take.
Right.
Right? That's
Right.
completely different.
Yeah.
But once you give permission, don't take it back. That's what we do. We'll say, oh, I'm giving this to God. And then 10 minutes later, you're on the phone with your girlfriend talking about the very thing you said you just gave to God. Right? No heat, no judgment. I'm just saying that then we wonder and we question why it's taking so long for quote unquote situation to resolve when we keep taking it back.
Yep.
When we keep ourselves in the vibration of the problem,
Yeah.
of the worry, of the fear, of the doubt. When we get together where 2 or 3 are gathered,
Hey.
we get together and keep affirming the thing we don't want. As opposed to, I gave this over, so let's talk about what I want.
Right.
Call your girlfriend, your lover, whomever, and just be in that vibration of the wanted. Because you know it's already been resolved.
Exactly. So she goes on. For example, a woman in urgent need of money made light upon the Christ within, the superconscious, with the statement, I cast this burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free to have plenty. The belief in lack was her burden. And as she cast it upon the superconscious, I love that you see, put it with a capital S, with its belief of plenty, an avalanche of supply was the result. We read the Christ in you, the hope of glory. Another example, one of my students had been given a new piano and there was no room in her studio for it until she had moved out the old one. She was in a state of perplexity. She wanted to keep the old piano, but knew of no place to send it. She became desperate as the new piano was to be sent immediately. In fact, was on its way with no place to put it. She said it came to her to repeat, I cast this burden on the Christ within and I go free. A few moments later, her phone rang and a woman friend asked if she might rent her old piano, and it was moved out a few minutes before the new one arrived. Right? There's some beautiful things here because in this first story, right, I cast this burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free to have plenty. The belief in lack was her burden. This is very important because so often it might not be that there's the problem that's the burden, right? It's not necessarily the challenge that's the burden, right? Yes, she needed money, but the burden was the thought, the condition in her mind
Right.
of lack.
And in truth, it usually is the belief that's at the core of it that is the burden.
Right.
Because the belief is pointing us to the situation to interpret in a way that it's a burden. In truth, it's the core belief that has to be cast.
And so by identifying if you are feeling vexed, if you're feeling fear, doubt, and worry as a situation is happening, in this case, right, you need some money, tap in and ask yourself, wait, what am I believing, right? What is the belief that's causing the emotion, right? Because then that's what you need to cast on the Christ within.
Right. And that's why, I tell my coaching clients and my students in class, develop strategies for letting go of the burden, for letting go of the core belief, for identifying it and putting it somewhere, whether it's a belief parking lot or a God jar or whatever, because part of this is we haven't developed yet the skill set to really cast the burden. And so we sometimes need to use ritual or tools or whatever to develop the skill set for understanding and actually, when the burden comes, to cast it.
Yes.
Not hold on to it and analyze it beyond knowing that it's there, right? We hold on to it. We make it bigger. We haven't developed a skill set or used the tools to cast.
Right. Now, the other part of this affirmation, you see there's two parts. I cast the burden of lack on the Christ within and I go free to have plenty, or I cast this burden on the Christ within and I go free.
Period.
So that's but the second part is equally important, right? And this is sort of that thing when we talk about denials and affirmations, right? That you deny the reality of something, but then you have to fill the space.
Absolutely.
Right. And so here we understand, okay, this burden of lack is what I need to cast on this thing that cares for me. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my burden is easy, my burden is light, and all of that. Right. Cool. So I'm casting this burden of lack, right? But because I have casted that burden, what does it mean? I am now free. I am now free. I am now free.
I keep thinking about that more and more.
Right? And who and what the Christ sets free is free
Is
indeed.
free indeed.
Right? You shall know the truth, and the truth shall what? Make
you
you free. Not set you free, make you free.
Because you know it. Because you understand it, because you embody it, because you integrate it, because it's more than a word free, it's an experience and a knowingness of freedom. And then you act from freedom.
Just about to say that. Yes, yes. Whatever that looks like for you.
Whatever that looks like for you. Ooh, that gave me cold chills. Then you act from freedom.
Exactly.
Not fear.
Right.
Not limitation, not unworthiness, not other people's opinion.
Yes,
you
yes.
act from freedom.
Hello. All right, we move on.
Yes, we got to move on.
I knew a woman whose burden was resentment. She said, I cast this burden of resentment on the Christ within, and I go free to be loving, harmonious, and happy.
Right.
The
I love
Almighty,
that.
right. The almighty superconscious flooded the subconscious with love, and her whole life was changed. For years, resentment had held her in a state of torment and imprisoned her soul. The subconscious mind, right? We talked about that
Right.
when she
Let's
uses
make sure we're
that
not
word
talking about
soul.
the soul, right.
Right. When she's talking about the subconscious mind. The statement should be made over and over and over, sometimes for hours at a time, silently or audibly, with quietness but determination. This is also important, right? Because so often it's like, oh, well, yeah, we studied this chapter. PYG said to cast the burden.
I did that, and
I cast the burden and I still don't feel good.
Right.
Or I cast the burden and the problem is still here. So this is something, it's an important spiritual principle, and unfortunately, and I say this not from a judgment, because we all have it as we are in this time and space, right? There is a microwave consciousness that we have. There are so many things that we can access quickly, which is beautiful, right? I can get almost any book on the planet in seconds digitally. I don't even have to wait for it to be shipped to me. I don't have to go to the store to purchase it, right? We have Google. We have access to all kinds of information. There could be something that I want to make today, I want to cook today that I've never made before. A quick Google search, I can have, 100 different recipes, right? To choose, like, there's just so many things that we can get almost instantly, and we're grateful for that. But unfortunately, what it has caused us to do is lose a sense of patience, which is required in the spiritual realm. Why? Because the best metaphor for the spiritual realm is the planting of a seed, right? And you plant a seed, and we know that it takes time. Right? We know it takes time. And we know that the one thing we can't do is dig up the seed to look at what's going on with the seed. Right? And we know that even when it breaks through the ground, it's still, frail and young and needs to be treated a certain way. And so it's important that just as you have to spend days watering when you don't see anything, you know what I'm saying? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like weeks, right? You have to spend all of this time when it comes to planting and gardening. It's the same thing. Now, when I say all of this time, I'm not saying that it has to take weeks and months or years for your condition to change. But what I am saying is that just affirming it one time and like, oh, well, it didn't work.
Right, especially given the fact that this is new to all of us, this way of being and thinking and living. You got to practice this.
Yes. And so the statement should be made over and over and over, sometimes for hours at a time, silently or audibly, with quietness, but determination. There's the word. Determination,
but not judgment that I haven't seen any different. I don't feel any different. Because that's what we do. We usually, I keep saying this over and over, I should have known it by now. I should have got this by now. We let go of the judgment as well. And we're like, I'm learning this. I'm learning how to activate my faith, which requires patience. All of that is true.
Right. And so she uses, because again, this was written in the 1920s, she uses something that we can't relate to. I've often compared it to winding up a Victrola. We must wind ourselves up with spoken words, right? So the old record players, you had to wind them up and to get them to the place where they would spin. But, you know, as I was reading this week, I was trying to think of something, but, you know, one thought that just came to me right now is, we're not winding up, but what if we're powering up? What if we're charging up? So we know that if our phone is at, you know, 20% or less, right? We have to plug it in, and we have to leave it plugged in so that it gets charged to 100%. If we pull it at any point in time in that process, or worse yet, we've all been there, the point where we let our phone die. Right. And so you got to plug it in. And sometimes it just sits there for a while before you even get anything on the screen, because it has to just get a little bit of juice, right, for it to tell you that it needs more juice, right, and like flash that battery symbol. So we have to, this is what we're doing, right, by affirming and making the statement over and over again, silently or audibly, with quietness but determination. We are charging up. We are empowering ourselves.
I
right?
love the fact that we're powering up. And in that releasing,
Yes.
we're filling ourselves up with the truth.
Yes.
We're aligning with the truth.
Yes.
It's interesting to me. I love Florence Scovel-Shinn because she uses examples that seem to be mundane. She uses examples that most of us have experienced as serious and important. You know, the piano example is, you would be like, that's not a big deal, because we cast everything.
Yes.
What we think of as big.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we think of as small. We get in the vibration of casting everything that would burden us, that would keep us from alignment, that would keep us from knowing the truth, no matter how big or small.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so I love how she uses all kinds of examples.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a powerful, powerful awareness too, because so often the way we've lived our spiritual life, this reminds me of Marianne Williamson, where she talks about staying in the realm of the answer. So often what we do is we cast the burden when the big problem comes, right? We cast the burden when the bills are piling up and our balance, we don't know how we're going to pay these bills, right? We cast the burden when, you know, something's going on with our kids at school, right? We cast the burden when, you know, we're experiencing a breakup, or, you know, we cast the burden when we want to go on a trip, but we ain't got the money for it, right? We cast it in those things. The opportunity, and this is spiritual mastery, right? Is to live this way at every moment, right? Whether you're in line at the DMV, at the restaurant, if you're in a lift, you know, whatever it may be, you start to operate this way because you understand the mind.
Right.
And that you have access to this super conscious mind all the time.
Right. And if I'm in anything other than alignment with love, joy, peace, and ease and harmony, there's a burden there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it appears to be a big one or a small one. And I get to cast that belief, that burden on this mind and go free.
Right. Because see, we treat God and we treat these spiritual principles like the Maytag man, right? That we just call on God when we have a problem.
When something broken down completely that I can't go on
Right.
YouTube and fix.
Right. We call on these laws, you know, in those times. And this is the exact opposite, right? The spiritual life is a surrendered life, but this surrender is a powerful life.
Right. Or we try to act like there is no burden until it becomes so overwhelming that we have to admit there's a burden. I don't know. Am I talking to myself, y'all? We try to bypass it. Oh, there's nothing wrong here. As opposed to, okay, there is, and I'm going to surrender it. I'm going to let it go.
Yes.
Because by the time you acknowledge that the burden is there, it's beyond your ability in your mind to do anything about it anyway.
Absolutely.
So the moment it shows up, cast it.
Yes. Cast it and go free.
And go free.
She goes on. I have noticed in casting the burden, after a little while, one seems to see clearly. It is impossible to have clear vision while in the throes of carnal mind or you know, material mind, the human mind, right? And only fixed on these
External.
5 senses, right? Doubts and fear poison the mind and body, and imagination runs riot, attracting disaster and dis-ease. In steadily repeating the affirmation, I cast this burden on the Christ within and go free, the vision clears, and with it a feeling of relief. And sooner or later comes the manifestation of good, be it health, happiness, or supply. One of my students once asked me to explain the darkness before the dawn. I referred in the preceding chapter to the fact that often before the big demonstration, everything seems to go wrong, and deep depression clouds the consciousness. It means that out of the subconscious are arising the doubts and fears of the ages. These old derelicts of the subconscious rise to the surface to be put out.
Right, not to be held on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, my grandmother, this used to be one of her favorite sayings. So the first time I read Florence Scovel Shannon's Darkness Before the Dawn, I heard her because it was always at the point at which things were so bad. And I thought, you know, as a child growing up, that, oh, it's getting ready to get even worse, that she was preparing me for even more darkness. But what Florence Scovel Shannon is saying, the moment we recognize the darkness, it's rising to the surface to be released.
Exactly.
Not because it's going to take over.
Right. Because, go ahead.
And you know, and I mean, again, it gives me chills because I would always hear this in my mind, the darkness before the dawn, as if there was something punishing me or that there was more darkness coming that I would have no way of getting out of, or that I would never, ever move beyond it. And she's not saying that. She's saying it's coming up and out because you've been holding it.
Right.
You've been having these beliefs.
Right. And this is beautiful, to understand how the work works. If you're affirming, I cast this burden on the mind or on the Christ within and go free, then everything that is unlike freedom has to leave.
Has to go.
Right?
Right.
It has to flee. And so that's literally what's happening. All of those old thoughts, all of those old beliefs that are in your subconscious are now surfacing and leaving.
Right. Not surfacing to remain.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, I think about old relationships when they were, you know, bad or ending or whatever. And I'm like, oh, all those thoughts I held subconsciously about how a relationship was supposed to be and what it was supposed to look like and having disappointment in my part. All of that stuff has to come up because what's underneath it is the truth.
Yes.
And I'm going to let that fill me as opposed to my worry, doubt, and fear fill me.
And so let that fuel your determination as you're repeating the affirmation, right? That when you see what's going on, it's like, oh, this is what's going on. I cast this burden on the Christ within and I go free because it's working.
It's working.
Right. It's sort of like we were talking about this, thinking about, you know, when we have a fever, right? A fever is an indication that your immune system is working to rid your body of whatever's in your body. I think sometimes people think that means you're sick.
Right.
I mean, it indicates there's something going on your
yeah.
body, but it's actually also an indicator that your immune system is activated. Right. And so it's similar in that way that's what's happening.
But we're judging it. We're judging what comes up. Right? And that's the wrong way to approach it. If we approach it that it's coming up to be released so that I can be free.
Exactly.
All of these unwanteds are coming up to be released so that I can live in the wanted. Right? We get in the judgment of it as opposed to the releasing of it.
And what does she say? Right in the wheelhouse. It is then that we should clap our cymbals like Jehoshaphat and give thanks that we are saved, even though we seem surrounded by the enemy, the situation of lack or dis-ease, right? So that this is then, right? This is the exact moment when we should access that level of gratitude, understanding what's going on. Right.
And when we say saved, we're not talking about saved in the old Christian context. We're just talking about released, aligned, back into right thinking, letting go, so that we can remember the truth of who we are. Like, yes, thank God, I just realized what I thought about relationship, what I thought about my career choices, what I thought about my body, what I thought about my finances. I'm now released of that as long as I let it go.
Yes. Yes, yes. The student continued, "How long must one remain in the dark?" And I replied, "Until one can see in the dark." And casting the burden enables one to see in the dark. In order to impress the subconscious, active faith is always essential. Faith without works is dead. In these chapters, I have endeavored to bring out this point. Jesus Christ showed active faith when he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground before he gave thanks for the loaves and the fishes. I will give another example showing how necessary this step is. In fact, active faith is the bridge over which we pass to our promised land. So this is important, right? You don't have this written down or highlighted, right? Active faith is something that's critical, but what do we mean here? So often faith without works is dead, is misused and misapplied. What it is saying is that you cannot say you have faith but do not demonstrate it, right? A lot of people say they have faith, but then they're still living from a state of fear, doubt, and worry. And so she's saying, right, Jesus Christ showed active faith when he said, "Okay, everybody sit down, right? We about to eat." Even though the appearance
Right, there was
nothing,
nothing
nowhere
there.
close to enough for everybody to eat. Not only did he say, "Sit down and prepare, we're about to eat," but then he gave thanks for what he
Had
could
already-
physically see that the reasoning mind said is not enough. That's active faith, right? That's active faith.
Because if he relied on his conscious mind, he knows, based on the number of people here, in my past experience, I cannot feed all these people. But he's not relying on his conscious mind. He's relying on the truth of all abundance, that there is more than enough.
Exactly.
And so he sits down in faith, down in faith.
Yes. And so this idea, active faith, is the bridge. If you think about, right, so by the willingness to cast the burden and go free, in spite of what you see, is a demonstration of active faith. And that bridge is then the connector to the superconscious mind, right? And it is then that we get to go into the promised land, if you will. So she uses a story. Through misunderstanding, a woman had been separated from her husband, whom she loved deeply. He refused all offers of reconciliation and would not communicate with her in any way. Coming into the spiritual knowledge of spiritual law, she denied the appearance of separation. She made this statement: "There is no separation in divine mind, therefore I cannot be separated from the love and companionship which are mine by divine right." She showed active faith by arranging a place for him at the table every day, thereby impressing the subconscious with a picture of his return. Over a year passed, but she never wavered, and one day he walked in. Right? Now, this is important.
I was going to say, this is important.
Right? Now, you can't manipulate any human being into your life.
Right.
And this is why her word is specific. Her word is specific when she says that which are mine by divine right. So she didn't name him. But what is absolutely true is that she can never be separated from the love and companionship which are hers by divine right. Right? And so that which is hers by divine right was going to show up in that house, whether it was him
Or another
somebody
him.
else. Right?
And so that's the other part we got to know. We cannot get so attached to the him, right? We can't get attached to the number.
Right.
It's
Right.
just divine right.
Exactly. And so that was her casting the burden. She also says the subconscious is often impressed through music. Music has a fourth dimensional quality and releases the soul from imprisonment. It makes wonderful things seem possible and easy of accomplishment. So we named about 11 songs
11
today,
songs.
right? So there are so many songs that get you in that vibration of casting the burden. I remember so clearly another good old gospel song by the same choir, Cosmopolitan in Chicago, All in His Hands. Right? When I made that, once I made the connection of the metaphysical understanding of a song that I had been hearing and singing most of my life, all in His hands, I put it all in His hands, all of my burdens, problems. If I have a question, I put it all. Yes, I put it all in His hands. This and that. this and that. I put it all in His hands. See, Lord have mercy. That is a way to live, to put it all in God's hands, right? this and that, whatever it is, a burden, a problem, just a question. I cast this question on the mind of God and I go free, knowing that I'm answered right here and right now.
Right. And what does freedom look like? Everybody knows what it feels like to be
Lord
free.
have mercy.
Everybody knows that. There's something that happens within the body. There's an opening. There's relaxation that happens. Your mind goes on to something else. Right? So you know when you're free and when you're not. And if you don't feel that sensation in your body, in your being, in your mind, then you're not free. So keep casting.
Yes.
Without judgment, please.
Yes. And so whatever that song is for you, right, or songs, like I said, I remember that connection I made with that song. I was literally dancing all through my apartment, right, with the song on blast for days because it was just crystallizing the truth of it, right?
And that whole vibration of movement, dance, you're releasing whatever's there. All of that goes together. So these things aren't far-fetched or some grand metaphysical idea. It's just practical.
Yep. I have a friend who uses her Victrola, her record player, daily for this purpose.
Spotify.
It puts her in perfect harmony and releases the imagination. Another woman often dances while making her affirmations. The rhythm and harmony of music and motion carry her words forth with tremendous power. And I want to zero in on this because there's always these small moments. And again, this being written in the 1920s and understanding the earlier understandings of New Thought, making affirmations. Now, today we might just say using our affirmation or saying our affirmation, but making her affirmations, right? And let's just tap in. What does it mean to make? The act or process of forming, causing, doing, or coming into being. So in truth, this is actually the most appropriate way to talk about affirmations, that we're making affirmations because whatever we're affirming, we're making it real. We're in the process of forming it, causing it, coming into being it, creating it. Yes.
Planting the seed in consciousness.
Right.
All of those things are making
your affirmations, right? So that word is just right there, and it was probably something that was just colloquial that they probably just said all the time, but it's not a way that we speak about it now, and I think that is so incredibly powerful. Make your affirmations.
I don't know about y'all, but this chapter, it's, as we say, it's one of our favorites. And I hope you feel how much we love this chapter. And I hope you're beginning to love it too. If you didn't read it the way we're reading it, definitely go back and listen to and watch today's message, today's class, and see what other little nuggets you can find for yourself.
Yes. And so the rhythm and harmony of music and motion carry her words forth with tremendous power.
One of the things that I, have my students do is create a fearless living. I might start calling it a freedom playlist. A list of those songs that just put you in that energy and vibration of truth. Plant you at the beginning of the bridge, walk you across the bridge, get you to the other side. All of that.
Yep. The student must remember also not to despise the day of small things. Now, I hate that she uses Columbus, but it still works, right? Invariably, before a demonstration comes signs of land. Before Columbus reached what he thought and called America, he saw birds and twigs, right, which showed him land was near. So it is with a demonstration, but often the student mistakes it for the demonstration itself and is disappointed. So this is very important, right? That we can understand that if any ship, let's just put that problematic human off the table, right? Any ship, one of the ways you know that you're getting close to land is you start to see things in the sea, in the ocean, that came from the land, that have washed off of the land, right? Twigs and other things. You would also start to see birds because there
must be somewhere for them to be
land.
nesting and landing.
Exactly. But it could be disappointing if it's like, well, I've been traveling all this time and all I'm seeing is twigs and birds, right? And I'm after land, right? And so she uses the example, a woman had spoken the word for a set of dishes. Not long after, a friend gave her a dish which was old and cracked. She came to me and said, well, I asked for a set of dishes and all I got was a cracked plate. I replied, the plate was only signs of land. It shows your dishes are coming. Look at it as birds, and seaweed. And not long afterwards, the dishes came. Continually making believe impresses the subconscious. Well, before we go to that part, so this is also interesting. One of the things that comes up for me around this is often when we're speaking the word for something, the first thing that even remotely resembles what it is we were speaking, right? Usually it's in the form of a beautiful human, right? We immediately are like,
Oh, that must be the one.
that's the answer to my prayer, right? And so it's possible that this person could be signs of land, right? So take in the information. It's like, oh, I was looking, for someone that, shows up to a date on time, and this person did. It doesn't mean that they're now going to be your forever love, right? But it does. It is a sign of land. Like, oh wow, I've healed that, right? And my expectation is different now.
I've healed that aspect of my belief.
Exactly, right?
And maybe there's others, or maybe I'm going to fine tune. Abraham talks about that. What's in your vortices? Maybe I'm just adding more.
Right.
Maybe I'm just refining what it is I want in a partner.
Right. So just know that please don't immediately try to make that person or that thing or that job. It happens with jobs as well. I see that a lot, right? All of a sudden thinking, oh, this is the answer to my prayer, right? Maybe it's the signs of land. Give thanks for it. Give thanks for it and know what's coming.
And the reverse is also true. Don't get the cracked plate and think, oh, this is all I get. Like
Right.
it's the same thing.
Right.
Oh, this all I get right here. It's a sign.
Yes.
It's pointing to something.
Exactly.
It's that there's a shift in your consciousness that even sees a plate,
Yes, exactly.
whether it's cracked or otherwise.
Exactly. Continually making believe impresses the subconscious. If one makes believe she is rich and makes believe she is successful, in due time she will reap. Children are always making believe, and except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. For example, I know a woman who was very poor, but no one could make her feel poor. She earned a small amount of money from rich friends who constantly reminded her of her poverty and to be careful in savings. Regardless of their admonitions, she would spend all her earnings on a hat or make someone a gift and be in a rapturous state of mind. Her thoughts were always centered on beautiful clothes and rings and things, but without envying others. Very important.
Yeah, that's
She
important.
lived in the world of the wondrous, and only riches seemed real to her. Before long, she married a rich man, and the rings and things became visible. I do not know whether the man was the divine selection, but opulence, I see, right? You see how she put that in
I
there?
love Florence go
Right?
shit. She's like, look,
She
now
said-
I don't know.
Right? She
What I
might have
do
done what we
know,
just talked about.
She might have done, right. She might have aligned herself because she thought this was it.
Yes. But opulence had to manifest in her life as she had imagined only opulence. There is no peace or happiness for humanity until we have erased all fear from the subconscious. Fear is misdirected energy and must be redirected or transmuted into faith. Jesus Christ said, "Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? All things are possible to her or him or to we that believeth." I am asked so often by my students, how can I get rid of fear? I reply, by walking up to the thing you are afraid of. The lion takes its fierceness from your fear. Walk up to the lion and he will disappear. Run away and he runs after you. You want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, this is somewhat true. The idea of fear is nothing but separation from the truth, right? When we're in a fearful place, when we think we cannot have, when situations are showing us something, we're in opposition. We are running away from the truth. We are fighting the truth. What also happens is physiology. We get this thought in our mind, it manifests in our emotion, it manifests in our experience, and then we start to feel it. It gets implanted, it gets activated, or it becomes the thing that no matter what is happening, becomes activated in our being. And so we equate every sensation from that point forward with fear.
Right.
What we're talking about doing is understanding what we're aligned with, allowing the truth of our being, and then moving through, allowing that to transmute it. Right?
Right. And there's lots of things in this statement that she's not stating that have to happen or be true in order to walk up to the lion and it disappears, right? Because she says the lion takes its fierceness from your fear.
Right.
So if you're still in fear walking to the lion, the
You won't be in
lion
fear.
is still going to be
Attack you.
exactly, and still have that fierceness. So in order to walk up to the lion, you would have to first transmute. That's what
Your
she talked
thinking.
about, right? Fear is misdirected energy and must be directed and transmuted. So you would have to transmute that into faith, cast the burden on the Christ within, and go free. Then you can freely walk up to the lion, and it will disappear. Native nothingness, right? She's using, she's using another example to get us to think about it. It's one of the things that's interesting and powerful and beautiful about these fears, doubts, worries, those things that are not true of our life. The reason we can say, go back from which they came to their native nothingness, because in truth, they have no root.
They have no power and no root.
Right? What always has root is this unending good that is always seeking to express in, through, and as us. What has root are all of the attributes of love, right? The fruits of the Spirit. But what happens is our subconscious mind can believe these other things are true.
Right.
And as long as we believe.
Right. We can implant or accept all kinds of things. We can plant all kinds of things.
Right.
But they do not have root or power or depth or strength.
Right. And furthermore, they're not law, right? Love is law and law is love.
And what is love? Love is unity.
Yes.
Love is connection to answers, to truth, to ease. That's what love is. It's not just emotion. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this idea of oneness. That's what love is.
Yes.
And when we're not connected to that, we are afraid. We are living from our fear.
Yes. Yeah.
We are walking up to lions. First of all, the lion wouldn't exist if we didn't believe it was there. But we're walking up to these lions, still in fear and thinking we can fight it.
Right.
But what happens is maybe it temporarily walks away, but you haven't transmuted it. You haven't surrendered it. And you definitely haven't aligned with the truth.
Yeah.
You haven't aligned with love. You haven't aligned with the superconscious mind, the Christ mind.
Yes.
And that's all this is pointing to. Just like the twigs and the birds point to signs of land, what the fear points to is something else.
Yes.
Not rooted in truth, but planted in your mind. We over here sweating because we in it, y'all. I'm like, oh Lord, we got to bring the fans
So we just got a
out.
little bit left of this chapter. I have shown in previous chapters how the lion of lack disappeared when the individual spent money fearlessly, showing faith that God was his supply and therefore unfailing. Many of my students have come out of the bondage of poverty and are now bountifully supplied through losing all fear of letting money go out. The subconscious is impressed with the truth that God is the giver and the gift. I love this. Therefore, as one is one with the giver, she is one with the gift. A splendid statement is, I now thank God the giver for God the gift. This is definitely one of those statements and those truths that freed me as it relates to money, freed me as it relates to circulating and receiving. I now thank God the giver for God the gift.
But what he also didn't say is go out and spend it if you still ain't changed your consciousness.
Right, you got to change your thoughts first, right?
Right? Because I don't want y'all coming to us and be like, you said go out and spend my last. That's not how we operate.
Nope. Humanity has so long separated ourselves from our good and our supply through thoughts of separation and lack that sometimes it takes dynamite to dislodge these false ideas.
Florence, preach it.
To dislodge these false ideas from the subconscious, and the dynamite is a big situation. We see in the foregoing illustration how the individual was freed from his bondage by showing fearlessness. Humanity should watch themselves hourly to detect our motive for action is fear or faith. Choose ye this day whom we shall serve. I'm quoting a different version. Fear or faith, right? So this is important. We talk often about listening to the still small voice and how we don't listen to the still small voice, and we ignore. Sometimes it's because we just didn't know, right? And something is so big. The dynamite is a big situation because it finally gets our attention, right? And then we have the opportunity to act from faith or fear, right?
But love is so patient and kind, and there is this. We all know that feeling when it's like, but you do it anyway. And it's not that you're being punished, that the situation grows bigger and bigger. It's just that, oh, wait, that there was that loving voice that was telling me, not yet. Clear up this thought. Not that you can't have the home, the lover, the career, or any of those things. Wait, there's something standing in the way.
Yeah.
Let's clear that up.
Absolutely. Perhaps one's fear is a personality. Then do not avoid the people feared. Be willing to meet them cheerfully, and they will either prove golden links in the chain of one's good or disappear harmoniously from one's path. Perhaps one's fear is of dis-ease or germs. Then one should be fearless and undisturbed in a germ-laden situation, and they would be immune. I would say may be immune. One can only contract germs while vibrating at the same rate as the germ, and fear drags us down to the level of the germ. Of course, the dis-ease-laden germ is the product of carnal mind, as all thought must objectify. Germs do not exist in the superconscious or divine mind, therefore are the product of man's vain imagination. In the twinkling of an eye, humanity's release will come when it realizes there is no power in evil. So let's just talk about this again. One of the things that I think is so important is to just remember that there is a collective mind. And so it is absolutely true on an individual level, and this is why healings happen. This is why we have seen profound healings in our community and know it's true. We have experienced healings in our own body because in truth, at the level of consciousness, superconscious, divine mind, dis-ease doesn't exist. As PY said, love and law, what is it? Unity. Right? And so we recognize that that's true. But on the collective, that is not a collective belief. Right? And so that is why we see dis-ease. That is why we see the manifestation of germs or even viruses. But this is not an opportunity to shame yourself for getting sick or when you get sick in any way, shape, or form. And it is also not an opportunity to shame anyone else. Because again, at varying levels, right? Even if it's just a little ache or pain because you're a certain age now or whatever, right? Like we have all taken on some of these beliefs, and we have the opportunity to, undo those beliefs from this level of understanding. But I always want to make sure that we speak of it in this way when we're talking about illness or dis-ease, because unfortunately, folks can become very fundamental.
It's so interesting, right? It gets so
in new
fundamental
thought when
in
it
new
comes
thought.
when it comes to this.
Right,
Yeah.
the very thing we said we were leaving in regular Christianity and traditional Christianity, you then take on those same characteristics as a new thought metaphysician. That rigidity, that oh, you must be doing something wrong.
Right.
We don't do that. That's not love and compassion.
Exactly. The material world will fade away, and the fourth dimensional world, the world of the wondrous, will swing into manifestation. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Now, I absolutely believe that this world, this new earth, is possible for us all. And so we also recognize, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. This is why, as we get it in our consciousness and begin to practice it, right, we become, she talked about that link in the chain, right, that we become the facilitators for the manifestation of that new awareness that's coming into being. So the next chapter you can see is the chapter on love. Read that chapter, reread it, and of course send in your questions to us. Any questions that you have, you can email truthsunday@celebrationsc.org, and we will incorporate those questions into next week's lesson. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
And also cast those burdens. Use your prayer request. Email it.
Yeah.
Use that as your tool, one of your tools to practice
Right.
casting
Yep.
the burden.
Yep. Absolutely. So Let's see. It's time for giving. I'm looking at the time because I want to make sure we have a little bit of time before the God Talk, but it is time for giving. You see the information here on your screen. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, or you can text to give. Text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500. What's important is that you give what feels good, that you give from this vibration of knowing that all is well, that you give from this vibration knowing that you're giving from source, not a resource, right? However, the many streams of income you may have are channels, right? And channels change, channels grow, sometimes channels can shrink, but you recognize there's an infinite source behind it, right? And so that is what you're giving from, knowing that God is your supply. I thank God, the giver, for God, the gift. And so when we give from this place, from this awareness, then we experience the complete blessing of giving and receiving. And so we affirm all the money that I use, returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. So we love and appreciate y'all, and we feel your engagement and excitement, and grateful that you are enjoying this teaching,
yes,
and this journey that we're taking together. Let's see, it's 12:38 Eastern Standard Time here in Brooklyn. So we will, the God Talk will start right on time at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join the mailing list. Let me put that up there again for somebody that may not have seen it. Text welcome 347-472-1078. Just the word welcome. Click the link. Enter your information, you'll get a confirmation, and you will be emailed the Zoom link and password for the God Talk. Again, it only happens on Zoom. It's not recorded. If you have any questions, you have to be there live to ask the question. But we look forward to digging in. Maybe you have some questions related to today's teaching or just something else that's showing up in your life. It's always a good time. It's always illuminating. And I feel better for attending every week.
I know, it's always great.
Every month so you will feel good afterwards.
Well, we'll see you at 1 o'clock because we start on time.
Yes. All right. And if we don't see you there, we look forward to praying with you on Wednesday morning. If we don't see you there, then we look forward to being back here with you on YouTube or Facebook for the next chapter and continuing this beautiful, beautiful journey we got game. Love you.
Love you.
Enjoy your week. All right. Bye for now.
Bye for now.